improving people's lives. And that's what you did. You made this state a better state for the generations that follow. And that is undeniable, inarguable, and true, even in these ugly, crazy times. I thank Speaker Carl Heastie and Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins for their leadership. And let me say this on a personal note. In many ways, I see the world through the eyes of my daughters, Cara, Mariah, and Michaela. They are 26 and 26, twins, and 23. And I have lived this experience with and through them. I have sat on the couch with them, hearing the ugly accusations for weeks. I have seen the look in their eyes and the expression on their faces, and it hurt. I want my three jewels to know this. My greatest goal is for them to have a better future than the generations of women before them. It is still in many ways a man's world. It always has been. We have sexism that is culturalized and institutionalized. My daughters have more talent and natural gifts than I ever had. I want to make sure that society allows them to fly as high as their wings will carry them. There should be no assumptions, no stereotypes, no limitations. I want them to know from the bottom of my heart that I never did and I never would intentionally disrespect a woman or treat any woman differently than I would want them treated. And that is the God's honest truth. Your dad made mistakes, and he apologized, and he learned from it. And that's what life is all about. And I know the political process is flawed, and I understand their cynicism and distrust and disappointment now. But don't give it up, because government is still the best vehicle for making positive social change. Lastly, I want to remind all New Yorkers of an important lesson, and one that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. And that's what you New Yorkers did in battling COVID. The enemy landed in New York State. COVID launched the attack here. It came on planes from Europe, and we had no idea. It was an ambush. And it was up to New Yorkers to fight back. We were on our own, and it was war. Nurses, doctors, essential workers became our frontline heroes. Hospitals became the battlegrounds. Streets were still, and sirens filled the city's silence. Trailers carried the bodies of our fallen brothers and sisters. But you refused to give up, and you fought back, and you won, going from the highest infection rate in the nation to one of the lowest. No one thought we could do it, but you did it. You led the nation, and you showed the way forward. And how you did it is what's most important. You did it together, not as black New Yorkers or white New Yorkers, not as LGBTQ New Yorkers or straight New Yorkers or Democrats or Republicans or upstate or downstate or Jewish, Muslim, Protestant or Catholic New Yorkers, but as one community, one family, the family of New York. You overcame the naysayers and the haters and the fear and the division, and you unified and you rose and you overcame and you saved lives. And that was powerful in its effect. It was beautiful to see, and it was an honor to lead. Please remember that lesson. Hold it dear and hold it up high for this nation to see, because it is New York State at her finest, creating her legacy, fulfilling her destiny, giving life and animation to the lady in the harbor, saying, Excelsior, we can be better, we can reach higher, and proclaiming E pluribus unum, out of many one, unity, community, love. That is our founding premise and our enduring promise. And that is the salvation of this nation that it so desperately needs to hear. Thank you for the honor of serving you. It has been the honor of my lifetime. God bless you.
That was Governor Andrew Cuomo resigning effective in 14 days, his third term as governor. And this comes just 1 week after the Attorney General's report that he had harassed or touched inappropriately 11 women based on those allegations and an investigation. We want to bring in now national correspondent Jerika Duncan, who's been covering this story for several months. You spoke with one of the accusers and one of the women in this report. In hearing the governor and hearing his attorney, his personal attorney before that, it seemed that they were laying out a case for the governor, and then that changed.
It did. As you and I have been sitting here listening to the news conference, the headline after listening to his attorney was, "This is the governor fighting back." But the governor said, quote, "My instinct is to fight." But in this case, it was different. He said that he loved New York. He loved New Yorkers. And by showing his love, he didn't want to waste the tax dollars, the time, and knew that it was best, he said, to step aside at this time. But it was very, very interesting. I think so many people, Dana, who've been following this, were not sure how this was going to go, because we knew that the governor laid out even Friday, his attorney, same typical arguments about holes in the report, right, questions that they had. How are we supposed to fight and give evidence to the Judiciary Committee on Friday when we haven't received all the transcripts? So that's really what we heard in those first 45 minutes. And then the governor comes up, he says what he says, interestingly enough, talked about the good things that he's done for the state, reminded people of the progress that the state has made, but also welcomed Lieutenant Governor, but soon-to-be Governor Kathy Hochul from Buffalo, right, where I used to work, right, and was actually the Deputy Erie County Clerk at that time. So my sources are telling me she is ready to step in. I think a lot of people knew that this was a possibility. Now it is clearly a reality. The governor saying he is stepping aside, and then the first female governor then to take that role in New York State history.
I think also interesting, as he was speaking, he very specifically addressed the troopers' allegations against her.
And he maintained that he did not do anything inappropriate with the woman we spoke to exclusively in reporting with the Albany Times-Union, Brittany Commisso.
Right.
But he did apologize. He literally said that he apologized to the family, he apologized to the trooper, and that he did not know, he said, he does not recall touching her in a way that made her feel uncomfortable. He does not recall putting the palm of his hand on her stomach, as reported in this State Attorney General's report from last week.
Right. Jerika, thank you. We want to turn now to CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman. Ricky, your reaction to what we just heard?
I think this is a sad day for New York State. I think that no matter what the allegations have been against Governor Cuomo, and no matter what the evidence is that we do have to remember that this is a hero who has fallen, and he has fallen, and his life is forever changed. He was someone who led this state in so many ways, particularly as we have seen in the fight against COVID, albeit there are still flaws there. He is someone who championed the rights of women in ways that other politicians have never done. And the irony, the supreme irony, it's almost Shakespearean, is that someone who has made it easier for women to be able to sue for sexual assault, to be able to go all the way back for those who were children who were sexually abused, and he is undone by allegations of sexual assault and sexual harassment. I do have to think that we give him much credit for resigning now, for resigning with grace, and for being conscious that this staying in office would be so bad for the state of New York, the people of the state, and for his daughters. I am very moved by his comments, but he has a lot to still face. There is a criminal case that may go forward against him. It may be one, there may be others, and he still has to deal with lawsuits for sexual harassment, for a hostile work environment. His crises are not over.
Yeah, he may be stepping down, but at this point, as you mentioned, there are other issues that he may face. We want to turn now to senior White House correspondent Ed O'Keefe. He is at the White House. Ed, you've been speaking with lawmakers in Albany. What are they saying?
Well, I just got off the phone with a state senator while he was still speaking, the governor, and as this state senator said, the governor was dealing with a biased jury. So this is a sigh of relief in Albany. Another member of the assembly is in tears, she said, because this has just been so intense for the state to deal with. The bottom line, as Ricky was saying there, he still has a legal fight ahead of him, and his lawyer laid out a pretty detailed case to help try to defend him in that regard, but the political fight is now over. People I had spoken with in the last 3 days since Jerika's incredible interview said that if the 63-member New York State Senate were to hold a vote today to remove the governor, 63 state senators would have voted to do so. The governor understood. While he faces a legal fight still, the political fight was insurmountable, and this is a guy who does not like to lose. The deep-seated hatred or disgust for this governor among legislators, members of both parties, runs deep. And these latest allegations were just too much for them. They wanted to explore not only these recent allegations, but concerns about the book deal he cut last year during the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak, the concerns about deaths at nursing homes in the state, and other concerns about issues that had gone on over the course of his 10, 11 years, roughly 10 and a half years in office. The other thing to watch for now, Jerika mentioned Kathy Hochul, who will be the first woman to serve as governor of the state of New York. People who are aware of what she's been doing for the last now 8 years roughly, because she didn't serve with him during his first term, say this is someone who's traveled the state, makes a good habit of visiting all 62 counties every year, but is in over her head, they argue, in terms of being able to lead this state. And so watch how in the next 14 days, if the governor does anything before he leaves to help boost her, because there's concern she may not be ready for this. And this isn't an issue of, it's somebody who's just not involved, because the governor hasn't allowed her to be involved. That could be an important thing to watch. But as Ricky said, an incredible fall for someone who had considered running for president, who was a close ally of this president and had worked with him, ironically, on infrastructure for years during the Obama administration, and who now is leaving the scene as a major Democratic Party star.
Well, and as we saw, though, the president calling for his resignation, believed he should resign with the news last week. Ed, thank you very much. Our coverage of Governor Cuomo's resignation will continue on our streaming network, CBSN, your local news, and tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Dana Jacobson in New York.
For news 24 hours a day.